All right. All right. Good morning, everybody. And by everybody, I mean myself. All right. Fifth installment of Hat Chat. Um, this time I sent my invites ahead of time, so hopefully we'll get some folks in here and we can chat hats. Oh, it's like I think I got my caffeination in today, so hopefully it'll be a livelier discussion from the start, but hopefully we'll get some folks in here and we'll chat hats. Today I'm wearing my pre-bankruptcy Borsalino Velour. Um, just well, it's the only Borsalino that I own, but it's not for lack of trying. Um, this one just happened to come my way at the right time, and it's also one of my favorite hats. So very pliable. I think the folks that love Borsalino um, kind of have that same kind of comment about the felt. And this isn't a super vintage hat. I mean, I guess it qualifies as vintage, but it is from I guess when I did the dating of the hat, it fell into somewhere along the lines of early to mid 70s. So it does qualify as a pre-bankruptcy Borsalino. Um, I couldn't tell you what a post-bankruptcy Borsalino feels like because I've never actually held one. Um, but these are supposed to be when quality was good, I guess. Um, I don't know. I get hear a mixed bag about the quality waning from the pre-bankruptcy versus uh, post-bankruptcy Borsalinos, but I don't have firsthand knowledge. Um, Anywho, it is Friday. Thank God for Friday. Just wrapping some administrative tasks up this morning, so I got a little bit later start than usual. But we do have Hat Chat number 5 underway, and so far, lovely morning. Managed to go out for a walk in my Borsalino. It seems like it's been quite a bit since I wore this hat. If you followed any of our previous hat segments, you would know that I started off with some of my more I guess heavy use hats. I think I did a several streams in my Knox Tom and Jerry only because that's just kind of I guess my knockaround hat. It just fits well. I like the way it looks. Um, and it came to me pretty well worn already, and I just added onto that. So it's a well loved hat, and it still serves me quite well. And but I figure for these hat chats, I'm going to give a little bit of more love to some of the rest of my hat collection. And this is probably one of my early hats in my collection, and definitely well loved. And I was just tickled to be able to have a genuine Borsalino hat, especially pre-bankruptcy. Again, I don't know the difference. I haven't felt a post-bankruptcy, but the folks that have swear there's a big difference, and I have no reason not to believe them. Anywho, so like usual, I'm gonna wait for folks to cycle in. I'll try to do some kind of monologue here. Not necessarily doing the best job. I'm more of a dialogue kind of guy, to be quite honest. But hopefully we'll get some folks in here. If not, then well, I'll just keep talking to the camera, or not talk and just stare at the camera until somebody does come in. Um, it all depends on my how long my caffeination lasts me. Um, so let's see. All right, we are going. Just doing the usual live stream check just to make sure we are going here. And yeah, so I shared the link on the Fedora Lounge. I also shared the link on my hat focused Facebook groups, and hopefully between all those sources, I'm able to get some sort of a. All I really need is one person, to be honest. So one person that's willing to post some comments, or some questions or whatever. Just have a discussion. So I moved beyond my coffee and I'm now into the fizzy water phase of my day. This is a Bellevue. If you listen to my past streams, you know that I've been big on these Bellevue sparkling waters. I call them fizzy waters, but I guess the term is sparkling water, strawberry flavor. And I get these from my local Aldi. Let's see here. Check up on my link sharing. All right. All right, we got one person in here. If you're here, post a comment. Let me know how you got here. I tried to spread these out through the various hat forums and communities that I'm a part of. So, um, just to see if we can get some folks in here and make this a regular thing. Again, I don't pretend to be a master YouTube content creator. I'm just a middle-aged guy who likes to talk, and especially about hats, and the New York Mets, who will try to break their losing streak today against the Milwaukee Brewers. We'll see how that goes. But yep, just gonna try to keep it nice and casual and start creating some regular content here for you guys. Um, it'll be a lot easier once I start getting some actual visitation. Again, very new channel. Don't expect to come out gangbusters, but that's okay. That's actually gives me a little bit time to start refining more of the content, uh, getting user feedback to see about what you guys want to hear about and talk about, um, and we'll just go there very organically. Just make sure. Been experimenting with the thumbnails. I know there is some value of having some variety in the thumbnails. So this time, as opposed to the caricature that I usually use, I ended up actually posting a picture of the inside label of my Borsalino Velour. I don't know what's going to work best. At first, I thought the caricature would actually be kind of cute and have it consistent and be the same thumbnail throughout. However, I didn't want to risk it to become white noise. So what I did was switched it up a little bit, and I probably will keep doing that just to make sure I get some variety. And at some point, I'll figure out what works best and maintain some consistency. I will get some feedback, and hopefully that will drive how things look moving forward. But yeah, gonna just keep waiting and seeing if anybody pokes their head in. Friends, family, fellow hat nerds, etc. I got my cat making a ruckus. upstairs, just eating his food bowl that we set up for him. Like spoke about on the potential ideas in the other live streams, but for those that haven't really that may find this one and not find the other live streams for some reason. One idea I had for these morning hat chats, because right now it seems to be kind of happening in the mornings for me, um, is to kind of go about, talked about making some healthier life choices and starting to do a lot more walking. Like I mentioned before, I've been trying to walk a whole lot more in the mornings and walk outside, touch grass, like the kids say these days. And but there'll be times where I am not able to go outside because the weather won't allow it, or I just don't feel like it. Um, and in those instances, I'm thinking about maybe setting up an under the desk treadmill here and trying to get some of my walk in, maybe in front of the camera. Um, it's not necessarily because I think that's mind altering content. I think for me, walking and talking kind of go hand in hand. I don't know if that works the same for any of you guys, um, but for me, it helps when I have some sort of activity that I'm doing while trying to do my thinking. Um, while I'm outside, I'll do a lot of self reflection on my walks. I'll come up with things that I want to accomplish for that day. Um, just stuff that administrative and otherwise that I need to accomplish before I get into my mode of getting started with my day. Um, it looks like we got somebody that joined. Make sure you post a comment if you want to talk. If you don't want to talk and you just want to watch me chat to my with myself, that's fine. Um, but yeah, looks like I scared them away as well. Such is life. Anyhow, walking and talking. Like I said, I feel like I do my best thinking when I'm out on a walk. So I figure if I set up some sort of treadmill here, I'll be able to accomplish some of that walking and thinking and also talking. So maybe I'll just do like a think out loud protocol. But we'll see. I just don't know if it'll be too distracting for the audience. But again, I don't really have a set format right now. I'm just kind of making it up as I go along. So ultimately, we'll just see how this materializes. I don't know. Like I said, just like we are not expected to stay stagnant and achieve and maintain a final form at any given point in our lives, I'm just going to treat the channel just like that. It'll be a living kind of body of work, and that will evolve, hopefully in a good way, meaning the content will get better, get a lot more engaging. We'll get a lot more of a community going here. And yeah, just kind of let you in on myself and the stuff that I think about, and you'll share your opinions and what you're thinking about, and we'll have a real exchange of ideas and information here. Um, and hopefully, just we all are better for it. I mean, again, I don't know if that's just, and I'm just me and my lofty thinking. I think this was one of those ideas that I came up with on a walk. So um, it's been a long time coming now. I think I forget what year I actually had officially joined the YouTube circle, but I started off just like everybody else as a content consumer. I'm still a heavy YouTube consumer, but I've always had the inkling that I wanted to push out content. I just didn't know what that content would be. Um, Obviously, when I did figure out I wanted to do a certain type of content, I just had trouble sticking to it. So I don't know. This could just be the same thing where I don't stick to it and I let it fall by the wayside. But hats are something that I definitely have a passion for. I wear one at basically at all times for better or worse. Um, and I figured, okay, I do a lot of interaction with my fellow hat folks, either on Facebook or the Fedora Lounge. And this is an opportunity to maybe step up that interaction, to go a little bit more beyond the typical uh, kind of typing on a keyboard, which is fine. It's okay. What the usual thing that I will do is I will post photos. So like on Fedora Lounge, usually there's the what hat am I wearing today? I enjoy seeing those photos and seeing all the various folks and the hat that they chosen to wear on that particular day. But at the same time, I feel like it's a little bit limited in terms of the back and forth. So I figured that this would be a good venue to try to see if I can start a dialogue in real time with some folks that, you know, kind of are a little bit more like-minded, share some of the same passions, uh, and again, see where this goes. I mean, I know we're a very small community. Um, you know, uh, like I mentioned in the past live stream, we don't have a whole lot of folks that wear uh, fine hats. These days, everybody that wears a hat these days just seems to like opt for the baseball cap, um, or for the trucker hats. I think are big these days as well. That's cool. Nothing wrong with that, but just not something that as I've reached middle age, I just can't reach for the baseball cap. It just doesn't have the same draw for me. Whereas when I put on the fedora, when I started wearing more fedoras, the bowlers, the Hamburgs, the pork pies, I felt like that was home, you know? Um, so much so that I kind of just started acquiring more and more. Before you know it, I had more than one, but less than 100 um, fine hats. Um, Again, not to be so cryptic, is that basically the thing evolves. I posted a live stream just it might have been my second hat chat. I don't know. I'm losing track already. It's only been like this is number five. But I was preparing a brown bowler that I had acquired uh, for sale. It was going to go to a new home. Somebody expressed interest in wanting to purchase that bowler, and because it was a hat that I just had that I didn't really wear on a regular basis, I was like, fine, let's just give it a new home. Maybe the new home will be it will be more worn. Um, that was an interesting transaction. I mean, the gentleman that bought the bowler did not seem like a traditional, like the usual hat kind of nerd. Um, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That could be, I don't know, that might be his very first fine hat. Uh, and that probably will open him up and maybe he'll acquire more and become a future hat nerd. I don't know. Or maybe that was just a costume piece. It doesn't matter. I guess once the hat leaves my possession, it's not really any of my business. I'm just hoping that the transaction and the hat leave a positive impression, and it creates a joy, the same joy that I got when I had it in my possession, or more so, right? So this could be a hat that this person never sells, and who knows? Again, it definitely was not a vintage hat. A lot of folks that collect vintage hats try to avoid the more modern hats, and and that's okay. I couldn't avoid this one because it just drew me that it was a brown bowler. I've been searching for a vintage brown bowler, and I've seen them. It's just either I've not come across them, or I haven't come across them and they're just obscenely priced, and I could not justify, paying the price that the other person was asking for. Doesn't mean it wasn't a fair price. It just wasn't a price that I was comfortable paying for the brown bowler. Um, this modern brown bowler by Hats in the Belfry that I had sold, and if you want to see it, obviously you can go ahead and check out. I believe it's Hat Chat number 2. Don't quote me on that, but it actually is in the title, brown bowler. I was wearing my Knox Tom and Jerry while prepping that bowler for sale. It was right before I took off. So, yeah, I mean, the collections are all ever evolving, just like we, the collectors, are ever evolving. It's not something, I think every time I talk to somebody about like the stuff that I'm involved with, like someone that's not a hat person, they'll the first thing, I guess one of the first things they think about, or they'll go out right after me, is like, is there a lot of money in buying and selling hats? I was like, well, first of all, I don't really, again, I don't consider myself somebody that buys and sells hats. It's not, I don't buy something with the idea that I'm gonna sell it. Sometimes when I see a hat, I'll be like, oh wow, I'll take a chance on this because if if it doesn't work for me, then it's gonna work for somebody else. And I think I kind of got that idea when I got the brown bowler. It was a hat that was a little bit tight on my head. I didn't want to go through, even though it wasn't a vintage piece and it wasn't like a rare piece. I didn't want to go through the hassle of stretching out a hat. I've not stretched out any of my hats. No offense to anybody that does that. I do know that a lot of vintage pieces do tend to run very small. Sometimes they run smaller than the size label that's actually imprinted on the hat. So in order to enjoy a lot of those hats, the folks with larger noggins have to stretch out the hat in order to be able to wear it. Otherwise, they'd be really limited in the amount of choices they have for what hat they get to wear and enjoy. So I do not fault them. It's just something where I happen to have a noggin that's like, I probably vacillate, depending on the brand and how it runs. My head circumference is between like 7 and 1/8 and 7 and 1/4. I think I'm like right somewhere in between there, if my math is right. Um, anyway, that gives me a lot more options because I can probably wear a lot of 7 and 1/8. Sometimes even oversized 7 might work. But very rarely. It's usually 7 and 1/8 is probably the basement. That this Borsalino is a 7 and 1/8 uh, head size, where I think that's a 57 centimeter. So I think that's kind of like the basement in terms of what I can wear, and usually they will either slot there or somewhere about 7 and 1/4, which is about 58 centimeters, if I'm correct. So yeah, that gives me a lot more options than a lot of other folks that have bigger heads. My dad included. My dad is not a hat nerd. My dad owns one hat that I gifted him, and I talked about that story on a previous stream. That was really special. Now I do have some hat pedigree. My dad's dad, my granddad, was a hat wearer. He would not go anywhere without his hat. I actually have a really great photo that I'll probably post as a special YouTube post, where I will share that photo that I have of my granddad wearing. I believe he's wearing his hat. He's an outdoor photo, and he's wearing his hat. So I wish he was still alive. And I definitely insist that we have a photo with myself, my dad, as well as him, all wearing our hats. I just think that's you really can't put a price on that. But on that note, that will motivate at least and the next time I go visit, which will be very soon, New York, to actually go ahead and post a photo with my dad with our hats on. What I'll probably end up doing, because my dad's hat is a bowler hat, I will probably bring um, my Stetson bowler down to the New York area, and we'll pose for a photo with twin bowlers. Um, I think that's a good. I like that idea. Anywho, so we're approaching 26 minutes into the live stream. We haven't really had any engagement with any viewers, and that's okay. Um, some of the caffeinations are wearing a little off. We'll see how long I am able to go today. But regardless, I figure if I get some consistency here, I mean, I've been posting live streams that have like been in the 2.5 to 3 hour mark. That just might be way entirely too long. Again, the reason why those happen is because I usually start that stream really early. Probably right after I come back from my walk. Um, and I'm caffeinated to the gills, or in the process of getting caffeinated to the gills. And it just so happens that I'm able to go 3 hours, obviously with breaks included, but I can go and do a 3 hour stream. Doesn't mean I should. Um, I would be more than happy to come up with an hour long stream, or even a half hour long stream, what have you. But ultimately, I just want to have a consistent schedule here where folks can kind of expect to see content coming from this channel, hat related content. That way they can just get accustomed to seeing that. And if they know that hat chat is going to happen as right around the morning, each morning, then they can kind of incorporate that into their day. Maybe they can find a way to come on here, post a comment, contribute, and then get a dialogue going. I mean, otherwise, I'll just plan to be here by myself, and maybe I will come up with questions or content, a set of content itinerary for you guys. I'm fine with that. It's just I don't really need to do a live stream to do that. I could queue up the webcam and just hit go and start that content. That really isn't the like I think live stream is a little bit more of a powerful medium for having a in real time dialogue with your audience, and that's what I'm really after. Um, the whole monologue thing. I thought about doing that as well. Doesn't mean I won't. I just want to make sure that um, I have this hat chat forum, this live forum in place, consistent, and also in a place where I'm able to engage with my fellow hat nerds, because it's important to me. I don't get to meet fellow hat nerds on a day-to-day basis. I live out here in the DC metro area, and I'm sure we got our hat nerds here. We just don't regularly meet. I'll have to find out if we are regularly meeting, and I don't know about it, because I'd love to have that community. It won't impact anything I do here online, but maybe what happens is I'm able to push some of those local folks, some of those local hat nerds into my live stream chats, and then we can kind of have a virtual meeting spot as well as a physical meeting spot. Um, there's never enough or never too many venues for hat nerds to get together and just nerd out on all things hats. I had the same idea about um, about the New York Mets content that I've been posting on here. I don't know how long lived that's going to be. Maybe I'm hurting myself by having both Mets content and hat content on here. I definitely want the hat content here. The Mets content could live on a different YouTube channel. Ultimately, I'm fine with that. I also am, in addition to being a hat nerd and a New York Mets fan, I also run Linux. I am a big consumer of Linux content on YouTube. Um, so I thought about posting some Linux content. The thing is, I don't consider myself a Linux expert. I am a Linux consumer. I'm a Linux user. I am not an expert, nor am I an expert on hats. I am a consumer. I'm a collector. I am a user of hats. Not necessarily an expert. I have some knowledge, but I know of knowledgeable people. I've interacted with knowledgeable people. Those are the folks that I would call experts. And probably even the same for New York Mets content. I definitely know some New York Mets experts, and to put myself in the same boat just wouldn't be. I'd be fooling myself, and I like to be realistic and not self-deceptive. Um, so yeah, lots of ideas. I'll keep doing my walks outside for when I can do that, and that will keep the idea generation here, for these live streams. And I've been reluctant, so I've been wearing these hats. I haven't really been showing the hat. I've just figured, okay, this would be great to have somebody actually on here to show the hat to. Maybe they'll have questions about, what angle they want to see the hat, what else about the hat, is pertinent. But I haven't really had that engagement so far. And again, I guess not really fair. I've had this YouTube channel for all of a week in its, more or less current form. So one step at a time. But I do want to get to that point, and maybe the thing is, my hat collection is finite. Remember, when I say less than 100, I mean well less than 100. So, and again, that's going to evolve. I'm eventually going to reach the point where I don't have any new hats to show, and I'm not going to go acquire a hat just to be able to talk about it. I don't have the kind of funds, and I don't know if I had that kind of interest. I acquire a hat when it calls me to acquire it. I just don't buy every single hat I come across. I'd be silly, and I'd be broke. So uh, I have a set number of hats, probably more than I should have, and I try to cycle through them. It's the same with watches. I have a lot less watches, but I tend to wear the same watches. I don't. I thought about having watch content on here, and I'm not opposed to it. I do feel like the fine hat community and the watch community, that there's a good amount of overlap. I don't have any data based on that. I don't have any data to support that conclusion, but I feel like that makes sense. I know it applies for me, and I'm sure that there's a decent number of folks. Only because I've seen some of the content on Fedora Lounge, and I know that a lot of folks are also into watches. That's fine. I'm not opposed to talking about watches. Again, just like with the hats and just like with everything else, I don't consider myself an expert. I'm a user first and a consumer, and over the course of the years, I managed to acquire some knowledge, and I'd be happy to share that and continue acquiring said knowledge. Because again, learning is fun, and who doesn't want to have fun? So, so it's just like I mentioned, bloviating on all things life, hats, Mets, watches, and whatever other topic that comes across here. But one thing I do want to avoid, and that's politics. Oh my gosh, I am politicked out. I am burnt out on politics. I don't care what side of the spectrum you fall on in terms of your political views. Um, I don't care. Honestly, at this point, it just doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to think any more or any less of you if I know your political views. I know folks on the entire spectrum, and it doesn't matter to me one bit. The only thing that matters is when you make it a point to um, toss your political views and make it as right versus wrong, as opposed to an opinion or a firmly held belief. Um, it's like you're not going to convert somebody into your political beliefs by stating them. You know what I mean? Or telling me why these other people are wrong. It just doesn't work that way. I don't know who you're trying to convince at that point. And I didn't want this to get political, and now I find myself getting into that. But you might be very surprised at what kind of views I hold politically. Um, but it doesn't matter. I generally don't like most politicians. So you show me a politician, I probably don't like them. It doesn't mean I hate them, uh, but they're not my favorite. We talk a lot about master motives in psychology, right? That's another topic that I could make a channel on, but I won't. Um, but you have the three master motives, right? We generally tend to have, and we all vary on the spectrum. We have need for affiliation, right? It's a need to socialize and get along, right? It's like the getting along with others. We also have another master motive that we all fall on a spectrum on, and that is need for achievement. Um, Need for achievement is the need to accomplish things, to feel like we're moving forward and accomplishing our goals. Um, and that's all fine and good. We're all on that. We all have that to a certain degree. And and lastly, you have this other third master motive, which is known as need for power. Um, and again, we are all fall on that spectrum in terms of need for power. And I just find that folks that gravitate towards political careers are higher on that need for power scale. Um, and that's okay. That's fine. You know what I mean? Luckily, that field exists that is able to serve those folks that have. And again, it doesn't mean that they don't have a need, right? Some people uh, have a need for achievement that's also served, right? These motives are multi-determinate, right? You can have one master motive that you're serving and also serve another master motive. So need for achievement, um, your need for power might also serve your need for achievement and your need for affiliation, right? We know politicians go out there and meet the people, they interact with people. Um, and then you also have it is an achievement, right? Getting elected into public office is an achievement. So you get to serve that, but it always, with that comes that need for power. And especially when it comes to like more of like the higher office. So that's why. And it doesn't mean that need for power is necessarily a bad thing, even though like the way I'm making it sound, it does sound like a bad thing. It just is a very, very um, easy career path for a lot of people that will abuse that need for power. And unfortunately, for the folks that are trying to do good, I do actually know. Um, I have several close affiliations of people that are in politics, um, and they're great folks. But like with many things, the few or whatever number of bad characters kind of ruin it for the rest. And you know, for me, I gotta say, I'm kind of jaded. and burnt out on all of it. So I think that's probably, unless I have to engage in this out of necessity, and I don't, because right now, I mean, I have I guess I run this channel, even though it's a community. I don't want to engage in that stuff. And if I see somebody using it to disparage somebody, then that's probably when I'm going to use my ability to act as a moderator here and um, and just politely ask for it to stop. It's just nobody usually, I've been on Facebook enough, and I've seen I've seen firsthand the how divisive politics can be, um, and it just gets ugly. Turns family against family, and I hate seeing that. I'm a big family person, and the last thing I like seeing is um, family bickering over their political beliefs and the fact that they're different. Um, and those folks in my family, you know who you are. I don't know if you've seen any of my live streams, but if you're seeing this at any point in time, stop that. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's not worth it, that you cannot pit yourselves against anybody, let alone family, on the basis of politics. And you're not going, like I mentioned before, you're not going to share anything that's going to alter uh, somebody else's political views. It's not going to happen. You're not going to convince them. This is just, political beliefs don't work that way. Widely held and or so to speak, firmly held beliefs don't work that way. All you really do is just kind of pandering to your own audience, preaching to the choir, so to speak. So the folks that agree with you will be just bigging you up, and all you're doing is pretty much peacocking. Um, whatever floats your boat. But please just let's not do that in this community. So if anybody sees this before they actually get into that, that's the nice thing about having this here is to kind of set the ground rules. I don't want this to be a political forum. This is just not. It just has no business in the area of hats, and enjoying hats and enjoying your fellow hat nerds. We don't need to get into that stuff. What we can do with politics is talk about all the great politicians that wore hats, right? We've had a lot of presidents, and a lot of essentially anybody that's ran countries that have made hats famous. Winston Churchill will be one. FDR will be another. Harry Truman. These are all folks because, and when you were president, probably before the Kennedy administration, you were wearing a hat, and it was probably a hat like a Hamburg, some sort of a hat that signified, or a top hat well before that. And it was a thing that you just did because people expected you to wear it. With the Kennedy administration, we had a kind of a shift. I think Kennedy was like the that marker where like he wasn't a hat guy. He had a very spiffy hairdo. It looked like Kennedy always struck me as somebody that wore a lot of stuff like I don't know if it was hair gel or some sort of material in his hair, and he had a really finely tuned coif, and I guess he hated to ruin it with a hat. But when Kennedy was in power, he did feel a lot of pressure to embrace the hat. So one of the things is you would see a lot of especially the early Kennedy photos where he may not be wearing a hat, although I think the photos exist of him actually wearing a hat, but he kind of made it a point to hold a hat. So I thought that was really interesting, right? I mean, for a president to feel that kind of pressure because of his predecessors and because of the hat industry overall, where it's like, I don't like hats. I don't want to wear one, but if I have to, I will be seen with one. So you get these photos of John F. Kennedy actually holding a hat but not wearing it, and he's like shaking these hands and greeting other of his colleagues, and that are running other countries, but he's not wearing a hat, but he's holding it. And I thought that's fascinating, right? Just how ingrained hats were to the greater macro culture, where you even had a president kind of like uh, kind of feeling it to the point where he's like, I'm not a hat person. If I had my druthers, I wouldn't be wearing this hat, but I'm going to wear a hat. Well, I'm going to hold a hat and be seen with a hat because it's what I'm supposed to do. Um, I think that is history in general is very the history of hats and hat culture is fascinating. And obviously, we know that today we are kind of fascinated with celebrities, right? That's one, we have more celebrities now than we know what to do with. And we're fascinated by all things what's happening with whoever's in political office. But the history of that and hat culture is, I think, very fascinating. And you do it because you want to make a certain statement with the style, and you want to build instant credibility, right? I think part of that reason and truth, any truth to the rumor that he held it so the Kavanaugh logo. First of all, welcome M Cox 4700. Any truth to the rumor that he held it so Kavanaugh logo could show, as his dad was a good friend of John Kavanaugh? I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know if there's truth to that, but I've heard it stated on the Fedora Lounge, and I've heard it repeated so often, right? It doesn't, like, at this point, right? Like, we know with history, right? It almost doesn't matter. Like, it does matter, right? It doesn't matter if it's the truth, but it almost doesn't matter. It's like, it's kind of like the truth, meaning it's out there. Regardless, it's so interesting that a president, as powerful as a president is, that he would even entertain that because of that, right? So I happen to own a couple Kavanaugh hats, and I gotta imagine that the hat industry, right, in pre-1970s, the hat industry was so big, right? So Kavanaugh was part of the Hat Corporation of America, right? This conglomerate. I gotta imagine they were powerful enough that they had that kind of sway. That would be kind of like big oil today, or big tech. Big hat, right? It's kind of like big hat, no cattle. But no, big hat was a force. And I got to imagine that Kennedy was friends with a lot of people, had powerful friends, and I wouldn't doubt that he was very good friends with John Kavanaugh. John Kavanaugh, was the one that started that conglomerate, right? That's how we got the Kavanaugh. Why am I blanking on this? M. Cox, help me out. The Kavanaugh felt, the Kavanaugh brim. Wow, I'm blanking. But again, John Kavanaugh was one of these titans that kind of started that movement, and then you had all these others that fall into it. Knox, you had Berg, just wide right now, Dobbs. All these major players, and these were all, I guess they were, I believe they were all based out of New York. These were like the major players in the New York hat industry. And these hats exist today. I have many of them, many examples. M. Cox, are you joining us for the Fedora Lounge? Just curious as to whether you found the live stream link via the Fedora Lounge or one of the Facebook groups. He had the brim fold that was unique for a while. Yes, Fedora Lounge, nice. fellow Fedora Lounger. Hey, well, thank you for joining us, man. I appreciate it. I think you are actually the first person to comment from the Fedora Lounge, and I appreciate it. I love the Fedora Lounge. I'm a relatively new member. I've only been on the Fedora Lounge for a little over a year, but I love everybody on there. Such a wealth of knowledge, and and the questions that come along, right? I don't know if there's anybody I would like want to talk to, like the Hatted Professor, right? And have him verify things like the question that you mentioned about John Kavanaugh, because I'm personally interested, and I feel like other people are. Um, Again, because these folks don't exist anymore, we don't have them. We're not able to go onto their Twitter like we do today and ask them directly. But I would love to pick the brain of somebody like Kennedy or Kavanaugh to kind of be able to verify, either confirm or deny the rumor, because it's so interesting, it's so fascinating. Even the idea that somebody like a president, and Kennedy was a very charismatic character. For some people, he's like the president, right? So many things associated with John F. Kennedy. Obviously the transition away from hack culture of in the U.S. Is associated with John F. Kennedy. Obviously, we know about the assassination attempt. We know about the links to organized crime, allegedly, and I am in no position to confirm or deny, except that we do have folks that are alive today that are former members of organized crime that have confirmed. And again, I don't know I don't have any ability um, to confirm. But so one person I will point out is besides, obviously we have Sammy the Bull that's on the on YouTube. We also have Michael Francesi, whose dad, Sonny Francesi, goes way back. Sonny Francesi actually lived to be 103, I believe, before he passed. And via Michael, and Michael just comes across as a very trustworthy source. I believe Michael has spoken about uh, confirming that definitely Kennedy had ties, to organized crime, and actually organized, organized crime actually assisted in getting him elected. And if you watch movies like The Irishman, you will see the theory posted out that organized crime was also behind his assassination, because he went back, meaning, right? So you had his brother Robert F. Kennedy go back on their word and go after them, so that he got help get elected. You see some of this stuff mirrored in The Godfather as well. But the idea that organized crime helped get Kennedy elected, then the Kennedy administration put on the heat on organized crime, and they were like, "Hey, we helped put you in the office." And the rumor goes that they assisted in removing him from office, the hard way. And again, I don't know the veracity of that. Obviously, that's well before my time. But just the fact that that even exists and that could be a thing, I think is fascinating. We're talking about the highest office, the most powerful man in the world. If that holds probably still true today, and it definitely was true when Kennedy was in office. We're talking about the most powerful man in the world, and the fact that I don't know, I just think it's like I'm trying to come up with, not that I am even close, I would even be close to being somebody anywhere near that important, but I'm just thinking about, like, if somebody said, Luke, I run a company, we're good buddies, we've been buddies for 20 years now. I sell teddy bears, and it would really mean a lot to me if you could do your YouTube live stream while holding this teddy bear. You don't have to like talk about it. Just hold it right here. so everybody sees it, and if you can make sure that the label of such and such teddy bear company is showing, you know, I appreciate it. Just consider it as a close personal favor. I feel wild, right? I mean, like, I'm like, are you out of your mind? I mean, hopefully we're good enough friends, like whoever we're talking about, they're good enough friends to ask me to do that. I'm good enough friends with them to tell them, you're out of your fucking mind. I'm not doing that, right? It's just wild that I can't believe you had the gall to ask me. No, I mean, obviously, you never know. We do spam. We do kind of solids for friends. Especially if it's a friend in need. You know, Now I'm like, I probably got some friend that's like, I was gonna ask you to do something similar, but now I'm not. Maybe I did myself a favor. Not that anybody really, besides you and Cox, I don't think we have anybody else on the stream. But that's the only analogy I can come up with, and it's probably a poor one. But I'm just like Kennedy, like I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of Kennedy when John Kavanaugh, let's assume this is true, that John Kavanaugh was like, so John, or Jack, I think might have his friends might have called him Jack. Um, but whatever his friends would call him, it's like, could you, we're kind of struggling. And I think that's when the hat industry was struggling, right? Right. So we know that a lot of these big hat companies a lot of them went away in the 70s, right? I think Borsalino was still alive and kicking. That's the kind of, the big mystique about Borsalino is that Borsalino was still alive and kicking. They were really peaking. It might have actually helped Borsalino that a lot of the American hat companies were struggling at the time. So, yeah, they were thriving at that time. I think Borsalino didn't really have trouble until like the 2010s, right? So I think they went bankrupt in the 2014, I think is the time period. So anything before any Borsalino made prior to 2014 is a pre-bankruptcy, and those more or less post are post-bankruptcy. Either way, I gotta imagine that by the 60s, the hat industry is probably struggling. That was kind of probably John Kavanaugh saying, "Hey, man, throw us a lifeline, man. We probably donated a bunch of money to your campaign. The least you could do if you're not going to wear one of our flipping hats is at least be seen with one and make sure that the label's showing, and it's so, and the thing is, regardless, we know the photos exist. Everybody has seen those photos of Kennedy. What we don't know is if that was just a coincidence or not. It just happened to be, right? Because presidents get photographed all the time. So it could just be happenstance that he was photographed. Somebody came up with this great story, and that's what it is. It's a great story, regardless if it's true or not. It's a great story, and it's taken a life of its own. It's kind of like it becomes like the hat industry's version of Bigfoot, or the Loch Ness monster. I don't know. I hate to, like, for those folks that actually know or have inside information. I don't mean to make fun of like that situation and make it sound like it might not be true. Who knows? Maybe that's But I also don't want to put it on as fact because I don't know. To be quite honest, I do not know. In terms of my credibility, like I mentioned in the past live stream, what I don't know could fill a gazillion encyclopedias. So I don't ever want to come across as any more knowledgeable than I actually am, or try to put forward that I am. Definitely not. I'm a relative newcomer in the grand scheme of things to the hat community, and I would not besmirch the hat community by trying to kind of pose myself as some sort of expert. But I have done a little bit of research, and like a Fedora Lounge has been really great in assisting in that. And I just want to kind of keep learning, and I'm like, when folks like you, M. Cox, ask great questions like that, those are the things that like I come across and I would just forget unless it happened organically here on this sort of live stream format. But yeah, man, there's so many things that I'd love to, like, I really wish I was alive back then. Now I do have some access to like older relatives that a lot of them were alive when hats were in its heyday. And they don't know. They don't know. So like a lot of folks pitch the Kennedy administration as the catalyst. I don't necessarily think, nobody that I've talked to has said that Kennedy was the reason hats went out of favor, even though that's kind of a popular assertion. I think the two events are correlated, but not. I don't know if one caused the other. I don't think I could, at this point in my gathering of knowledge. I don't know if I could confidently say that one caused the other. That is, that the Kennedy administration, by the function of Kennedy not being a hat person, led to the demise of hats. They do seem to be correlated, but yeah, I don't know if that's the case. I will say I do have a lot more confidence in the assertion of the rise of the automobile, right? I think there's a little bit more juice behind that, right? So we know that even though cars have been around, right? We had the Ford Model T and what have you, whatever came after the Ford Model T. We know that cars were around, but cars weren't something that everybody had, or let alone had collections of, like you see now, right? You see, folks that had collections of cars, even if they're not wealthy and well off, they have like several cars. Um, I think that the rise of the automobile and being accessible to the average person, um, and that led to, or at least had something to do with the demise of hat culture. I got to think there's something there. It just makes intuitive sense, right? If you're somebody that's, we do know the functional use of caps, right? Even though you know, I have my full set of hair. A lot of folks, a lot of modern hat wearers, it's a functional, right? If they're balding and they're out in the sun, the hat provides some coverage for no sunburn. And even if you have your full head of hair, it still provides coverage. But when automobiles became in vogue and accessible to the average household, then now that functional use of the hat in terms of providing protection from the elements, just, it wasn't needed anymore. Who knows? Maybe it became more of a liability in terms of the everyday casual wear. Now, again, back to the Kennedy theory, we do know that Kennedy had quite the coif, right? He was a well manicured gentleman, had like product in his hair, had a very, well groomed hairdo, and people loved him for that. They thought he was, a very handsome man. Again, there's no doubt that probably all of that probably played a role. And either way, it's fascinating, and I just, every time I go and run across somebody that has lived through that time, especially while we still have them alive and able to speak on it, I think we have to maximize that. Again, I gotta imagine that some of those folks on the Fedora Lounge, and Cox, I don't know how old you are. I'm middle aged myself, but nowhere near old enough to have talked about those times. But maybe on the Fedora Lounge, we do have some folks, and bless them for it. Meyer the Hatter. Meyer the Hatter just turned 101. I've never met Meyer the Hatter. I've never visited his shop in New Orleans. But and I don't know if Meyer the Hatter is on the Fedora Lounge. I don't think he is. But man, would it be awesome to like be able to speak to Meyer the Hatter, a man that's 101 years old, and still kicking. Like, I just saw him on Facebook. I follow him on Facebook, and he looks good. He looks good, and I was talking about that on the previous live stream. I'm like, can you imagine? Like, I really hope. I think Meyer, the Hatter's family, is also involved in the business. because I think I saw his granddaughter, who I think is his granddaughter, or maybe it's just his daughter. Um, but she's there, and I think he has other siblings. I mean, other children or grandchildren are involved, and I'm like, yes, that's what you want to see, right? Because what you want to see is that hat shop. You don't want to see that hat shop go away. Not just the rise of the auto, car styling became lower profile and had less room to keep your hat on while driving. And don't forget the mid 60s culture change to casual dress in younger men, hippies. Correct. Absolutely. Thank you. See, this is exactly what I wanted. I absolutely 100% agree, M. Cox. Yeah, basically, you had a confluence of factors. I don't even know if that word is correct. A confluence of factors, I think, that led to the demise of that the great hat culture that existed up until the 60s and 70s. Um, and the nice thing is, right? So the nice thing is that it did create now this subculture that exists now, right? So we know that hat culture is not dead. Hat culture is very much alive. It's a little bit more niche. This community is a lot smaller, but we kind of, I guess, we've kind of filled the void, right? We've kind of helped fill that void. So now it's not a mainstream thing. And who knows what the next hat, right, will be, right? I don't know. What is going to be the next hat? Maybe it'll be like cars, right? I watch a lot of Star Trek. I don't know about you, M. Cox, but if you watch Star Trek, right, you got people flying around in space and spacecraft, right? I'm watching Voyager, right? And who's the character in Voyager? Wow, is one of the pilot guys. Wow. Anyway, shows how much I retain. But in Voyager, you have one of the guys. The nice thing about Star Trek is that you find with like Next Gen and with Deep Space Nine, which I finished not too long ago, and then I'm on Voyager now. You see a lot of admiration for modern day, especially American culture. And so, like with in Deep Space Nine, you had Captain Cisco was infatuated with baseball, and this character in Voyager is fascinated with hot rods, right? So even though everybody's riding around the space shuttles and flying through space at warp speed, you have this fascination, this individual that somehow picked up this fascination with hot rods of the muscle car era. And he's there, he's going into the holodeck, it's called the holodeck, and he is going and working on cars in the holodeck because he is a 24th century grease monkey. Right? He still manages to maintain this grease monkey identity and his love for the hot rod, even though it's way past its time. And yeah, obviously hats we're not that far removed from the heyday of hat culture, but we are still trying to maintain that, and we are kind of like the modern day kind of equivalent of that. And luckily we have these forums, we have like the Fedora Lounge, we have these Facebook groups that I'm a member of, and hopefully this channel will become, we have, I talked about Kevin's Hats and Guitars. There's several other ones that still exist. That exist that are trying to keep that hat culture and that cat community alive and provide a forum for us to kind of get together. And that's what the whole purpose of this channel, otherwise with UM Cox, I would probably interact with you on these Facebook, late to join the chat and early to leave. No worries, M. Cox. Thank you for joining us, and obviously, we'll do this. I'll keep going in the future, and I'll post the links. Thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure having you and interacting with you. And I'll see you on the next one, man. Thank you. Wow, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. I am tickled. I had one other person that I think might have joined me from Facebook. and asked some great questions and had some great input. This is what I was looking for when I envisioned this channel and doing this live stream segment. It doesn't have to be anything predetermined. I'm actually really bad at scheduling out what I'm going to talk about. Otherwise, I could just forego the whole live form, the whole live setup to begin with, and I just do straight videos. But I just don't. I don't know. Not that again, not that I'm opposed to doing that, but I really do like the in real time interaction with some fellow hat nerds. Again, I'm gonna shout out MCox 4700 for joining me. He's joining me from the Fedora Lounge. I am again. I've only been on the Fedora Lounge for a little over a year, and wow, what a time it's been. And it still is because I'm on the Fedora Lounge, you know, every day, or I try to be every day, to kind of just admire and kind of commiserate with my fellow hat nerds. And yeah, it's just it's heartening to be able to kind of do this in real time. So yep, I mean, I think for me, like this just reinforced why I started doing this to begin with. And I'll keep doing it for as long as I'm able to and I have the energy to do it. Right now it's only been about just under a week, right? So this is Hat Chat number 5, kind of like combo or mambo number 5, right? Um, eh, and yeah, I think it giving me renewed energy to try to keep this going. So thank you. You don't know what that means to me. So yeah, I appreciate that. So yeah, on trying to stay in topic. This has been a fun ride, and I'm really looking forward to the possibilities of what this could be in the future. Um, One thing I thought about, so right, we were just talking about Meyer the Hatter. Right? Wow, I had not even thought about having somebody like Meyer the Hatter on. Somebody sees this and Meyer the Hatter, and know the family and is able to get him on here. Geez, I don't even know what I would do. I just have to kind of do some prep work to be able to do that justice so I don't waste the opportunity. Or I might just be my goofy self, and just blow it. But yeah, that'd be nice. But maybe that's a little lofty. I do know Kevin Gerber. Kevin, I think, used to be on the Fedora Lounge. Kevin's not 101 years old, thank goodness. But he is a swell guy, and maybe I can get him to join. I have met him on a couple occasions in person. Very swell guy. Really great YouTube channel. I don't think he used to do it. Actually, I meant to tell him that I had gotten inspiration. So I think he had a segment that he started early on his channel called Hat Talk. And I think he had a guest. I can't remember the guest's name. It might have been, one of his fellow co-workers that when he was working in the hat shop at the time. But it was really enjoyable to see that interaction and that dialogue of two hat nerds, two hat people kind of going back and forth and talking about like their hat of the day or their hat of the week, their top, the top hat brands, silly stuff, but also really important stuff. Because again, we don't know who's watching. I think sometimes we tend to, and I know it happens to me, I'm just going to speak for myself. Sometimes I take for granted that there might be other folks that know nothing about the hats, that this could be their very first interaction with with the hat community, meaning they've been thinking about doing it, and they are just learning and seeing if this stuff is for them, right? We all know that this stuff is, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to get into, because there's just not that common. Some people are a little self-conscious about how they appear, and not look out of place, right? I'm like, for me, I'm like, it's okay not to be cookie cutter. But for other people, like, they wouldn't dream of it unless they really needed to wear the hat for functional reasons to guard them from the sun. They just wouldn't go out in a hat because they would think they look weird. And I think the more we normalize, so like that's why I love the Fedora Lounge. The more that gets normalized in terms of, yes, it's okay to go out in a hat, and not because you need it to protect your scalp and or whatever other reason. It's okay to go and put on a hat because you just really love hats and you really love fine hats. And it should be just as acceptable, just as normal as somebody that goes out in a baseball cap or a trucker cap or whatever other cap that's quote unquote normal in in modern day. So uh, MCox 4700, thank you so much. I think I have come across you on the Fedora Lounge. For those that want to find me on Fedora Lounge, you used to be able to find me under the Crown Royal. I just changed that name. I'm trying to kind of standardize my screen names. And I just got approved, and now you'll be seeing any kind of post from me under the very same screen name I have here on the YouTube channel as Good Luke's. So at least now you know my name. My name is Luke. And if you see me out there, then let me know what you think of the Hat Chat segment, what you want to see. If you if you don't care for the format, that's fine too. I will take constructive criticism. I know I do this pretty extemporaneously. It's just the way I try to do this. I try to have an organic chat. Every time I find and I try to do a prepared segment, a type of video, I always fall victim to the script, right? And I'm really bad at reading from a script. I don't like it. I don't come across well, at least in my mind, about reading from a script. I like to go like the rappers say. I like to go off the top of the dome, and freestyle it because I don't know. Even though it doesn't come across as very organized, it is how I like. It is Luke. Anybody that knows Luke and has interacted with him knows that you know I do this. I speak with I speak very lively and I have the hand motion. Um, and I go on tangents sometimes, for better or worse. Sometimes folks, I think over the course of time, you get used to it. It can be jarring for new folks, especially with the volume. I was joking about that yesterday on the live stream, is with my sister. Like, I'm used to, like, in my many years at work, I've always been used to conversing with somebody, and all of a sudden I see this, usually with a smile, and it's very polite. But instead of saying, "Hey, lower your volume," I just this. And like I mentioned, I go from zero to New York very quickly. So yeah, wow, what a great set of questions. What a great stimulus. With your question, M. Cox. I'm still kind of reeling from that. Because again, it's something that I think has been discussed on the Fedora Lounge. It's been discussed on other groups. It just it's just a great the reason why this keeps getting discussed is because it's fascinating. It's also relevant to know our history. So regardless of whether it's true or not, I think it's just as important that we discuss it, despite that, because it's important to have these discussions, this exchange of ideas. Because again, what's that old adage? If you those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. I think that's very good, sage advice. We are we would do well by kind of seeing, right? I think Mark Twain said history doesn't repeat itself, but it also rhyme, but it does rhyme. Um, all that stuff is true. I'm kind of like a treasure trove um, of sayings and stuff like that. So you will see that, many times. Anywho, we're about an hour and 20 minutes into this live stream. We had one guest from the Fedora Lounge, Cox 4700, join us. We talked about his comment about the connection between uh, John F. Kennedy and John Kavanaugh, which is really fascinating. That's something that if somebody sees this and decides to post a comment later or in a future live stream, I'd be happy to go over that. I don't think I can talk about that enough, but I'd love to talk about other things hat related and otherwise. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to mute my mic. I'm going to walk away and take a quick break. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. I'm going to be joining back shortly. I'll keep this train moving. All right. See you in a second. And just like that, I am back. Thank you for humoring me, even though there was nobody that I think entered the chat room. Hopefully not, and they saw a blank screen. Again, this is just something that's just some growing pains from the streaming setup. Right now, in case you have not been caught up, but I at some point started off streaming on both YouTube and Twitch using a specialized software, but one that was a beta software, and I just had some reliability issues. So even though it was very nice to be able to stream to both platforms, there were one, I wasn't really getting much, if any, engagement. I don't think I got any engagement really from the Twitch platform. Not surprising. Twitch is a very different, at least in my mind, is a very different core audience. Twitch is still pretty much primarily known as a platform for gamers to share their gaming streams, even though Twitch is not just a platform for gamers. There are many forms of content on Twitch, and I just figured maybe hack content would be something that could get a foothold. But because the live streaming, the multi-streaming was becoming problematic or less reliable, I decided to just stick right to YouTube only because it's easier. I'm actually able to tell if somebody's in the room. It won't tell me who's in the room unless you comment, but it will tell me whether somebody else is in the room with me in the live stream, and that way I can kind of engage. See if they want to post a live stream. It could just be a straggler that just comes in, wanders in, and sees some jerk with a hat on and wanders out, and that's fine. But I feel like this platform, it's a good base, right? So maybe I will rethink multi-streaming in the future, but I didn't want the technical issues to get in the way of me putting out these live streams in a reliable way. And so yeah, one thing I need to figure out on this YouTube platform is how to get a message that says "Be right back." Right. So I know I need to take bathroom breaks. I need to take breaks to drink something. Maybe even have a quick bite if I get too long. In the streaming. Although that's it, that probably would be a cue for me to stop streaming. I'm gonna try to avoid eating in front of you guys. I don't like seeing myself eat, and I'm sure somebody else will not want to see me eat. This is not a mukbang channel, so you will not. Even though I love eating, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I'm gonna try to spare you guys from having to watch me eat. I think the most I'll try to do is stick to my fizzy drinks or my coffee if it's early in the morning. Um, and yeah, so if I figure this out, I'll refine this YouTube streaming. I do know some YouTubers that might assist me with some of these little quirks and figuring out things on the YouTube side. Or I'll just keep messing with it until I figure it out myself. But in the meantime, what I'm going to try to do is at least when I need to take a break, mute my mic and then do what I have to get done, and then come back as quickly as I can, and then resume the stream. That way, when we do have a situation where we'll have regular participation here. Nobody feels, nobody feels like they are missing anything because they don't see me in front of the screen. Um, so yeah, very excited. I'm like jazzed that we were able to actually get sort of organic participation. I mean, I've had some participation here already, and any little bit really helps because it really is motivating for me to keep making the content. Um, I really do enjoy it myself, and I'd be happy to continue making content for myself. But I could just sit in my room with no camera on and talk to myself. I think this format really lends itself to being able to reach out and communicate with my fellow Hattoners, and hopefully on a day-to-day basis. I don't know if I can keep this up for every single day, but it'd be nice. Let's just see if I can get a week of live streams done, and then we'll just take it day by day. I'm sure there'll be times where I'm either out of town, or I am just busy with other things like work, family, what have you, and that won't allow me to to do the live stream. But when I'm able to, um, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, hopefully continue, at least for the time being, continue to leverage the communities that I'm already a part of, um, and hopefully not burn any bridges that way. I try to be tactful about how I go about the sharing of my content in my channel, so that I'm respectful of the rules. I've just done this in the name of community and in the name of getting out the word to the audiences that I know that I know might be interested in the content. So yeah, I think I'm feeling really good about what this week has brought. I think now all that's needed, besides the refinements in the setup here, um, and just to get some genuine interactions, just like I just had today, with MCOX 4700, and just like I had the other day with DCA 321. Look at that. I think I might have actually gotten that right. You guys have both been have been really helpful with your comments. Hopefully, you guys will spread the word to anybody you know that might be interested in this kind of content, and we can get a small community. I mean, if I had a community that just included myself, MCOX 4700, and DCA 321, I would be fine. I still try to continue growing that community, just so that everybody could benefit. But I'd be happy to interact with two fellow hat nerds on a semi-regular basis. And like I said, and we'll see if that is enough to attract fellow nerds. And another thing, I'll put an open invite. I don't know if any of you gentlemen, and I'm assuming you're gentlemen, not to be presumptuous, but if you do have your own YouTube channels and you're interested in, and even if you don't, if you're interested in jumping on a multi-call here, a video call. Again, I've not done that, so maybe I'm being like overly optimistic in terms of being able to pull something like that off. I know I've seen other YouTubers do that and operate in a distributed fashion, and we can do that. So as opposed to you interacting with my YouTube feed via text, and we just had a person join. Welcome. Feel free to leave a comment. I was just talking about what I want to do in the future with this platform. We talked about Meyer the Hatter, we talked about Kevin Gerber, but just you guys. I am okay with just having some of my fellow hat nerds join the call. You may not be a famous hatter, but you are a member of the hat community, and your opinion is just as valid, at least to me, and I'm sure to the others. I think this is how this should work, right? Platforms like YouTube allow communities to come together with with very little hierarchy, or like very formal hierarchy. Obviously, I own this YouTube channel. It's my channel, but I don't want it to be just about me. I don't want it to be just about me bloviating on whatever topic happens to come into my head at the moment. I'd like to have a genuine, organic dialogue with my fellow hat nerds, and even those folks that are not hat nerds. I'd love to pick the brain of somebody that is not into hats, and but maybe wants to be, or maybe just, I don't know. Even if you hate hats, and maybe you see me walking down the street and you hate the way I look. I'm interested in knowing that. I mean, not everybody's gonna tell you, and I guess that's a good thing. But I don't know. I feel like somebody could provide a unique perspective, as somebody that sees hats, but they don't think hats are as great as I maybe think they are, or as NCOX 4700 thinks they are, or as DCA 321 thinks they are. I think that is valuable perspective and just as useful. And I welcome it. Again, this is not just the Good Luke show. This is kind of the hat community show as well. I'm just kind of like moderating it, and trying to get something out of it, just like all you guys potentially are. So yeah, that was good. Really happy with how this has all turned out, and this might actually be a good time to just close out the show. I think we're approaching on 1 hour and 35 minutes of doing this live stream, and for me, this hasn't really been any fluff. This has panned out exactly the way I want to have it. So I might just kick off right now and wish you guys a wonderful day, a great start to your weekend. It is Friday, and I hope you guys enjoy your Hat Day, your Hat Friday, Fedora Friday. That's what it is. It's Fedora Friday. Happy Fedora Friday to all my hat nerds. And until the next one, stay hatting. Ciao.